This is the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where we have conversations with everyday martial artists about their histories and how martial arts influence their daily lives. You are listening to the abbreviated version of this podcast, which is the first 20 minutes or so of the show. Please consider supporting the show by subscribing on our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/MALMAG, and for about the price of one coffee shop coffee per month, you can get access to 4 new podcasts each month, 1 week before their YouTube release dates. You also have access to all of our existing shows, which at this point is about 100 hours of shows for you to enjoy. Individual shows can be purchased at our Gumroad page. That is malmag.gumroad.com. If you're looking for some sticks for FMA, some cool t-shirts, or even a course on Dos Manos, have a stop by martialartslifestylemagazine.com and click on the store tab or on the courses tab for that course. In this episode, I connect to New York City on Zoom again and I talk with Yeydy De La Cruz. We talk about how he got involved in martial arts, how to have good energy as martial artists, getting out of your head while training, appreciating things as we get older, and much more. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and this week I am connecting again to New York City, which is, I think, just something that's telling me, Tim, you've got to get to New York City and visit all your friends there because been through it and never seen it properly. So welcome to the show. This is Yeydy De La Cruz, if I hopefully say the name correctly.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Guru Tim.
Of course.
I always say, think of a roller coaster and you go, Yeydy. So that's my best way to explain how you say my name.
I love it. You know, you're actually a person I've been looking forward to getting on here for a long time, just because, you know, you've got this great personality to you. I love chatting with you and seeing you every time you come out to the academy, because there's, you know, the cliche of you bring this energy to the room. But I mean, it's true. It's just what we're talking about is, you know, a noticeable personality. You're a guy that's always just, you know, you have a good time when you come out. And I really enjoy that. And it, you know, it helps kind of lighten the room and it makes, you know, other people around you pretty happy, I think. So, you know, been looking forward to talking for a while.
Thank you. And, you know, it's funny, lately, you know, as we tend to get older, you know, we move from the notion of like the physical and enter into more like energetic world and stuff like that.
Right.
So, you know, energy is something that, you know, we present in one way or another.
Right. Exactly. It's, you know, I guess it's a state of being, right? That we're kind of talking about. Being, I find people that are, what we talk about, that good energy, is that they're just being present, which is, you know, something we all sort of struggle with, I think, in the stressful world. You know, we're easily living in the past and we're easily worried about the future. So, you know, being present's a hell of a thing. And when you find people that can kind of do that and help you be in the present moment and enjoy it, it's really something special.
And that's a very important point. Something that I stress a lot, whether I'm teaching kindergarten, first grade, second grade, or teaching adults martial arts, is you have to be here. You know, a lot of times we just go in and go try to do things just for the motion. Yeah, you know, but your mind is not there, your body's not there, your spirit's not there. So you're not there. You might be physically occupying a space, but you're not there. So
right,
you have to be present.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of, you know, it's neat that you sort of let the cat out of the bag a little bit there with something I just learned about you before we started, which is that you know, you're a school teacher. So we've got a lot to talk about. That's going to be real.
Oh boy.
But let's kind of go back to the origins. Let's talk about how you got involved in martial arts. Like, what made you get into that?
You know, it's funny. As growing up in Dominican Republic, you know, 73 child, and then Bruce Lee was huge, obviously, everywhere. Do you hear an interference?
No.
Oh, okay. You know, you grow up with the notion of like, oh, look at this. Oh, this is amazing. And then when I came into the United States, you know, got into karate, but those were crazy experience because you have adults like really like beating the crap out of children, you know. So we were placed in a horse stand and you get somebody side kicking you into a wall. You're like, are
Oh
you
my God.
tough enough now? You're like,
This
I
is
don't know. I
hilarious.
think
Just chatting with someone, Adam Taggart, who's from
yeah.
England, and he lives in the US now. He's making a product that I'm just about to put up in the store, which is Malongs and whip belts made from paracord. So stuff that
Awesome.
they're great, man. I just tested them out yesterday. You could choke someone out like boom, like that with it. But
Awesome.
he was talking about literally the same thing you're talking about, and that I said, "Oh, that's my experience too." Is you're younger and there's no kids class, and so you're like this preteen or teen all of a sudden put into with grown people, some
Yeah.
of which in my case were professional PKA fighters, and I would say they took good care of me, but they didn't kid glove me either. I mean, they popped me like, hey,
Yeah.
okay, now I know what it's like to be hit by someone who knows how to hit, and it's like that's very real.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, oh my, I think I broke a rib right here today. So, going back and then, I don't know, it took me a while. I think I met somebody uh, that was part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons.
Performance, uh-huh.
And he used to train martial arts. It's funny because he said he would train at the Guru Academy. This is back in early 90s. He gave me some like lessons and stuff like that. And then back in 98, that's when I really started. I joined Anderson's Martial Arts, and that is the history of me and how I got into martial arts. And then I've been in it ever since.
Wow.
In different capacity, obviously, because life will take you in different directions. So, but once you're in it, I always tell people you're in it.
Right.
Uh, whether you do it with
It's a
with it,
lifestyle.
exactly, whether you do it transitionally, where you consistently do it, sometimes you stop and you come back to it, like once you have it, it's very hard to let go.
Oh, that's very true. That's very true. So when did you come from Dominican Republic to here to the States?
So I came 1985.
Okay.
Uh, I don't use the phrase I came. I was brought. I was a child.
That's right. Yeah, like decided. you know.
I didn't buy my ticket. I didn't decide. So I was brought in 1985 uh, at the age of 11, turning 12. I grew up in Washington Heights, which is a very Dominican neighborhood in New York City. Actually, it has the most dense population of Dominican in the entire country and is officially known as Little DR. That is its official name. Yeah. So that's where I grew up. I went to school here, went to college here, work here.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
you're for all intents and purposes a New Yorker.
Yes, but it's so funny, and this is something that you realize later. So I came, yeah, here in '85, preteen. So you have a good handle of what your culture is, right? But then being raised here, it's almost like a clash in a little sense. Because like sometimes when I go back to home to the Dominican Republic, because the accent, because the way I speak, mannerism, they say I'm not from there. And then sometime here they say I'm not from here, and they're like, okay, but where you
Yeah.
are. So you're always constantly looking for that middle ground of who you are, where you are, where you are, where do you belong, stuff like that. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. And it's weird the human uh I don't know if it's a desire or need, probably more of a need because I think it comes from fear, this idea that I need to divide or point out a difference. Which is why I think I like how we do martial art. We kind of go beyond that and say, well, where are we together? And we're together here in this thing. So it bonds us, and we don't really point out those kind of things as differences as much as we do a fascination. Go, oh, great. Well, what unique thing are you bringing to the table with that common
Exactly.
of upbringing that you have?
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to distinguish things. It's very easy. We distinguish color, we distinguish mannerisms, way of speaking, way of writing, way of looking, way of standing. It's much harder. It's much harder to identify commonalities. But then those things, as a school teacher, those things starts early on because we always want to identify the differences in things. I need to know, what a tiger is and what a lion is, and as opposed to saying, oh, what do all these things have in common? Well, they're all living things.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I mean the stories are interesting. Like, Dominican Republic, I mean, I was good at geography. So I could tell you where it's at and I
Hmm.
could a little bit about it. But my main vibe of it kind of comes from my father, who was in the Marine Corps, who went into action there in
Oh,
1964.
the 1964. Yeah.
Yeah. And his story was really interesting in that he said they went in. So you had, I think it was Army Rangers and Marine Corps went in for
Hmm.
that. And he said they popped down. The Marines had given them maps that were so old, they were so off. And so he with a bunch of guys looking around like, where the hell are we? And he said a 12-year-old girl literally walked up to him and spoke in perfect English and said, "Where do you guys need to go? Are you lost?" And they were blown away, like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
And they said, "How do you know English so well?" And she goes, "Oh, my mother works for the Hilton."
Hmm.
And so they were guided by a 12-year-old girl to where whatever location they needed to go to. And so, my dad's story, and of course he was on the other side of the island too for military action at some point in Haiti. So he's just
Yeah.
like he's telling me, he goes, that's a world of difference between two sides of the same island. But his stories were always fascinating to me, and it usually always kind of involved people, his personal interaction with people in these kind of crazy, I guess any military action is a weird situation for those of us who
Yeah.
don't not at on a daily basis. So, but that was interesting, and it's always kind of perked my interest in going, you know what? I want to go check this place out sometime. Besides that, you make good cigars there.
Oh, they do. Actually, my grandfather was a cigar roller. But it's funny you mentioned, but like in 1964, the invasion of 1964 was due because the dictator Trujillo was there. Um, I don't know too much. I'm not a scholar in that era, but the man took power, I believe, in the year 20s, and he ruled the Dominican Republic all the way until the 60s until he was assassinated. So obviously, after his assassination, the country went a little bit awry, a little turmoil for who's going to be the leader and all that stuff. But I try to avoid politics and
Yeah,
things like, and like I said, I don't understand too much of the history of it, but based on what my grandfather would tell me or my mother would tell me, you know, were very interesting time in terms that education was high at that time. Um, English was were taught in most schools. Uh, Economically, the country was doing very well. But there's always a divide. You have some people that adore the man, they adore the time. Then you have some people that did it. Because with every dictator, you might start with good intention, but there are things that you do that are not so good.
right.
So, uh, but those were interesting time. One of my understanding is the last time where the Dominican dollar and the US dollar were 1 to 1.
Really?
So
Wow.
that says something about the economy. Also, the agricultural technology was very high. Dominican, an island in the Caribbean, we are known for avocados and cigars and products that we export.
Yeah.
So interesting time. But it's funny that you mentioned a little girl speaking English because a lot of people spoke English uh, because tourism always been big in the Dominican Republic. So people learning. I met a guy who spoke 7 languages, never went to school.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, just learning on his own, hustling in the street, with different customers and stuff like that. So it's a very interesting place.
Yeah, yeah. I think it just that story was so interesting. Probably, some of probably my father's and my own naivety about, yeah, that there would be people that speak English that well. But I also just like the fact that it was brave that some 12-year-old girl just walks up to foreign soldiers and says, "Hey, let me help you get to where you need to go." Like that's pretty tough, in my opinion. That's pretty brave.
No, we're known. It's so funny. As a person that travels, you overhear story when you go here, when you go there, when you go here. I never had a bad experience, and I've been in some funky situation. Lost tire. Broken down car in the middle of somewhere in the U.S. in Dominican in different places, and uh, all I have met been good people, very serviceable, willing to help. I have one person one time drive me almost like 100 miles. Wouldn't wouldn't accept a single dollar. So going back to that energy thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. I can say the same thing. I've traveled to a lot of places, places that, like you said, could be a little dicey or
Hmm.
shady, just, interest or a byproduct of where I was going. Not every place has the good areas and the bad areas, right?
Of course.
And I've been the same way where I've just encountered nothing but, there's been some dicey people, but the encounters with them were always very short.
Yeah.
But for the most part, any of my meaningful encounters with people, even in areas that were a little shady, were always good. And do you think like our energy, as we're talking, like as martial artists, do you think that helps out with that sort of thing?
I say absolutely. Like you get a student who's very stiff, who's very, hard, his muscles are very tense. The way that they portray themselves is also very tense. It's just the way they are. So when you learn to read individuals, you're like, why is this person always like this, always so tense, always so serious? And then they begin to train, they begin to loosen up, um, they begin to be aware of how their body, your posture, that's what I mean. And then martial art helps you with that because you'll quickly learn the more you tense up, the more tired you get, the more fatigue your muscle actually get because they're always tense. And the way people move you around, it's also very quick because your energy is always directed in one direction. So they learn to maneuver, to hold up, to soften up. I always say, be like that cooked spaghetti, right? It can
Right.
fold, it can bend. You like hard spaghetti, it'll crack eventually.
And it's not tasty.
It's not tasty, you know. But yeah, your presence, your energy, martial arts definitely helps with that. It definitely helped me. I was over ill temper as a child, and as adult, no, I always had not anger issue, but I was very easily set off by things. And it's through martial arts, through training, uh, touching people. I say martial arts is the only sport where you can let somebody touch you, throw you, kick you, punch you, And but that interaction is what actually teaches us how to soften up, how to interact with others, how to understand a situation, how to understand how people move, body move, and more importantly, intention. Intention is the overall factor in whatever situation you are in. So,
Exactly. Well, and it's interesting because we're taking like a yin and the yang of it. So if you think about that touching, as we're saying, contact or punching, kicking, throwing, locking, this sort of stuff, when we're in a fight or in a competition, then it's one feeling. It's well, a competition you still sort of trust the other person is going to kill you, but in a fight, there's that. But in training, we're doing this with people we are now going to put a lot of trust in. So where the same thing in another situation is you're not trusting because you know you're in a dangerous situation. You're now putting trust in people that you're training with. So that's kind of an interesting thing too. I mean, you're really putting a lot of trust in something that could be dangerous. I mean, realistically.
And also, I put trust in myself uh, before anything else. Like, I know who I am. I know my reaction to certain things. And once I understand the situation, once I understand where I am in the environment, I can say, okay, I am good with it. Like you mentioned, like if you're going to compete with somebody, yeah, I don't necessarily need to trust the individual. I can trust myself. I can definitely trust the referee because there are rules, right, that we need to apply. But knowing where I'm at and knowing who's in front of me and knowing their intention, because even in a match, you know when somebody's really trying to hurt you, as opposed to somebody who's just trying to beat you to win the competition. So that's what I'm saying. Learning to read the room, learning the intention behind it, uh, allows us to be better prepared to handle whatever it is we are in.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump into this. So, I mean, you've come to New York, and in New York, since I've interviewed several of you folks from the different New York schools that I enjoy, I'm realizing as naturally being probably the most metropolitan city on the planet, there was a lot of choice of different martial art there. So you found karate initially, or was that in Dominican Republic when you started
No,
karate?
no, that was here. That was in Washington
Oh,
Heights.
got it. Okay, so there's a lot of choice, and then you discovered Anderson School.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, I know a lot of the people from there, and that's an amazing environment. I understand why that would absolutely attract people to stay. But was there something? Was it the school that attracted you to stay in the martial arts you're doing now, or was it the martial arts themselves, or was it a combination?
I think there was it's a little bit of different things. Um, I when I first went to the school, I thought, wow, this individual or these individuals, they were young, they knew what they were doing, they're rugged. When you're young, you're like, oh, we're gonna hit it, we're gonna hit. Uh, so the energy definitely brought me into. Uh, I don't know in terms, like what kept me. It's just like I just came in every day, then showed up. I was present every day. I the more present you are, the less you have to think about anything else.
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/malmag and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Gerald Mark Soto. Next week I connect to New York City again and I talk with Yeydy De La Cruz. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabiker Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available with new t-shirt designs and more products coming soon. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the Events Calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Jack Al Relic. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.